Hi, I'm Tommy.
Hi, I'm Nemanja. Welcome to Cloud Couch.
It's where we discuss cloud topics from a couch perspective.
Not so comfortable couch. Welcome back to another episode of Cloud Couch, where we're going to talk about why startup in cloud. So today we'll focus on some stories that you, Tommy, have. This is how we also met when you were building your startup, and we can see what kind of rationale and challenges and lessons you learned in this journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. It's a very big topic in general.
Yes.
Let's see how much we babble here and where it goes. But yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting for startups. And when I say startups, for me, it's really about any new project, because I've been building not only let's say small companies in cloud and startups, but really for me it's also greenfield, which is kind of corporate.
You mean a greenfield project in a large enterprise?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Like really what they should be doing and what they need to move into for innovation, for really building new products that are actually the future revenue for them.
Mm-hmm.
And in both cases, in my view, they look very much the same in terms of how you approach, how you think about cloud, and of course also other options and what you really need. And yeah, that's what we're gonna tap into today and look a bit about. Yeah.
Right. So I would say let's start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So when we met, you were just starting with this startup company, and I met you in your office, and you had this big AWS architecture on the wall with lots of services connected and all that. So this is where we started first discussing about the feasibility of using certain services versus another options and so on. But can you guide me through how you came to that architecture on the wall? Was the AWS your first choice, or were you discussing about other things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if we are a little bit biased with AWS overall, it's not that this is the only option. And when we met, that was in 2018, sometime maybe spring or something like that. Yeah, it was really, I was coming, so basically just quick recap. So I've been building, let's say, backends and systems, internet applications, trading systems, very much on dedicated hardware type of things, telco, network equipment. So I have quite a broad background on different high performance systems, on-prem, let's call them all on-prem, or that you need to care about the hardware. And I've been also building another startup, 2015, we're building 1.5 years, we were on Google Cloud Platform. Okay. So that's kind of the starting point when we met, and what I have in up until then in terms of what I've been using, and just played around with Amazon Web Services for completely different non-production type of things. However, I was working as CTO at this Swiss startup, and looking at both building a small team, but also building a non-trivial platform with a larger backend, very data-heavy, machine learning, modern APIs to power mobile applications and web applications. And like in a startup, what I think also is important here, when we met and I had that on the wall, I've been thinking a lot. I mean, I have experience and know what I was looking to find. And I also knew the, let's say, trade-offs that I need to make in order to kind of be able to utilize the time, the money, the team that we had available in this startup. And I think that's in general the same discussion you need to have, no matter if you're a big corporation doing your legacy stuff, or if you're doing a greenfield project, it's all the same. You need to talk through that. So that's kind of what I've been doing, looking at both Google Cloud Platform, of course also looking at non-cloud type of backends, let's say, there are many versions like DigitalOcean, virtual private servers basically, and also Swiss ones like Exascale, like them a lot. But this is like basically, you have your own server and then you need to do the rest. And then you have cloud where you also can have your own server, but you have so many other things. So I was now more looking at, okay, what would it look like on AWS? And I was very interested and intrigued to also start using Amazon. Heard a lot of good things. I've been talking to quite a few people to kind of hear a little bit feedback. And then I was reaching out in my network to see, can I find somebody who works at AWS and I can ask some questions, we can discuss, and I can see, is this really interesting? Should I be choosing this? Obviously, I'm not going to wait for the answer from somebody at AWS, but really talking through the things and understanding much more about it, so I can make a decision. Is it Google or is it Amazon? So that was really all that thinking had gone into that picture, and I already had an idea. This is what I think I should be doing, and then enter Nemanja. It starts.
Yes, and verified it was good.
And, that was good. And then
to cut the long story short, you build it on AWS.
Yes.
But wasn't there like learning path that was involved with AWS? So often when I talk to customers and also startup companies, decision which cloud to go, it's quite often depends on existing skill sets that you already have in a team. So if you have a team that is very skilled on a Google Cloud platform or Azure or AWS, that's pretty much gonna determine the direction where you want to go. So you have been on a Google Cloud platform building software. Why abandoning that knowledge and starting learning AWS? Was that a sort of gut feeling you should go there, or you just wanted to learn something else and this was a chance to do this?
Why? Why? No, absolutely. It's that's a very important data point and consideration, especially if you have larger teams. In my case, it was one person at that point. It was me.
Okay.
And I was looking to hire one more person. So it's a really small team. And that's also about opportunity and also constraints a lot.
Okay.
And we'll come back to that for sure more. But at that point, it was really about me looking at how can I get a start that I can also see this is going to make sense to scale, not just on the technical side, but also it's going to scale on the people side. And right now, I don't have a problem because it was just me and I know myself. And I have so much experience that is easily transferable, and I'm willing to take the learning hit or the whatever is required to learn the specific AWS tools and services and so on. But the knowledge, what I'm building, I already have, and that's why I drew it on the basically in the wall. So it was not for me the decision of, okay, I come from Google now. Yes, I know some things there, but it's directly transferable over to what I want to do here now, or even outside of cloud, because it's like APIs, is different types of scaling parts and so on.
Yeah, but also back then, that's like 3 years ago, I think a Google Cloud platform on that time maybe was not on the level where AWS was 3 years ago, even though maybe they're like both advanced in the meantime. But was it back then that you missed from Google Cloud Platform that you wish that there was and you were looking for in another cloud vendor like AWS or?
Yeah, so actually, back in 2015 when I built this backend also for a mobile application, I built it on App Engine. An App Engine back then just came out with Golang version of building on App Engine, which was back then I was on the bleeding edge and there was a lot of hurdles and trouble to just use basic stuff like storage, search, and things like that. But it worked, and I was quite happy with doing things there. But it was quite limiting in terms of other types of services that I could be using. So I had the basics that quickly translated into using just a virtual private server and spinning up a few, Elasticsearch, a database, and then an API, proxy, Nginx, or whatever you want to have. And that's it. So very, very similar. So these things I knew well. So I knew doing it yourself, and I know Google. But now I wanted to build something that can scale more, and in the sense where I don't need to do all the things that I need. It was interesting to look at what's coming up with machine learning and SageMaker, and also data pipelines for analytics, like Kinesis and other things. I was looking at things that were looking very interesting as more as Lego to put together, and then have somebody who is obviously very capable to operate that in terms of Amazon, more paying for just using these managed services and get quite high up in the stack, so to say, and just build our unique application on top of a lot of well-known building blocks. And that was really kind of the gut feeling. I wanted to, yes, I would like to test out that, to move as high up as possible and just use existing building blocks that are really
So those were the needs for your startup, that you knew it's gonna there will be a need to scale to a lot of users globally, global. So
that's what you want.
Yeah, global reachability. Yes.
Yes.
What were the limitations of this start that you had to work with?
Yeah.
Was it money? Was it people? Operations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also comes down to another thing. How I think about it also is all of those, and also like, what is it that you want to do or should be doing as an organization? And this is a startup, but it's also very much corporates. What is it that you should be doing that adds most new value, that you can get most revenue and profits from? So taking all that in and looking at, okay, we're a small team. We don't have the luxury of having many engineers, which means we need to build in the cloud, which means we need to deal with infrastructure. So everything from the very fundamentals to our layer, which is our unique application.
Yeah.
So I can't buy the uniqueness. So this I have to do.
You have to build it.
This I have to do.
No way around that.
But what about the other pieces? So obviously I could look at, if I can buy all the other stuff or get a big chunk of it, what does it cost versus can I hire somebody, or what's the time to do that? Does it make sense to operate your own database? Does it make sense to, whatever the piece is? So my thinking is, just to kind of make it a bit faster, not to explain too much, but the thinking is really looking through the list of what needs to be in place to do what we need to do, thinking of scalability, so building a system that's flexible. What are the pieces that need to be there? Which ones can I just buy for some price tag? And which ones do I have to make for sure? Okay, so if I take the ones that I have to make with the 1-2 persons that I have, how long is that going to take and cost?
Yeah.
And then looking at how much of the other thing, makes sense to do or not do. And that was kind of like, fast forward, the end result was basically looking at AWS, thinking we can get a lot of this for free. We want to get rid of all server operations and patching and this low-level security. We can't afford to do that or think about it, but we have to think about it, but we can't actively do anything. So I would like to cater to security. So that means also like, all the security things you can think about, like encryption at rest and in transit, but also very much other things, making sure servers and everything is up to date. So we don't need to, risk anything here. Yeah.
So at the end, you ended up with a serverless solution, I would say. Was there any server in the architecture that you had to touch and log in and operate, or was it fully serverless?
Yeah, so short answer, we had one, which was just a convenience bastion host or jump host, because we wanted to. So short answer, yes, one box. It was a bastion host we could SSH into, and it allowed us to a little bit troubleshoot and look at a few other services. One was Docker, and the other one was our database, which is Aurora, MySQL. And the reason we had it was that initially we couldn't log in via actually the service didn't exist. I think even the console to log into Aurora and do SQL queries. And there were some glitches and things we didn't get to work as we wanted. So we wanted to have access to log in with console, and it was very convenient via just having a machine on the inside. And in addition to that, it was just one thing. And the other thing was we were doing a database migrations with something called Flywheel. And that was also, we built that in a Docker container and also added an API on top of it, so we could actually trigger off, rolling back and rerunning migrations, a few of these things. So we could just do it from the inside manually. We didn't want to expose that, didn't make sense, or build some automation. And the other thing was we were also interacting with our Docker containers where the application was, our APIs on the inside. Yeah.
And
otherwise not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just for maybe my understanding, once you set up the environment, that in the beginning you didn't have that number of users that you envisaged, but it grows over time. What was the cost of operating all of that, for example, or how many? One is the bill you receive from AWS for the infrastructure that you use, but the other one is from a human perspective side. Who was operating? Who was on call, on pager duty?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's part of that trade-off where. So the quick answer is that quickly looking at for the foreseeable future using Amazon managed services and not reinventing wheels or taking responsibility to do it is like probably more than an order of magnitude price difference. We would at least have to hire one, maybe two more persons. Okay. So that's like, let's just count with round numbers. So let's say it's 10K a person. Per month. So 20K, let's say we would have had to add to do reasonably to the same level where we were with just everything on our own on a virtual private server. Okay. So we have 20K in one side, and then on the other side we have these services where we're monthly paying for. So obviously we had an organization and everything was set up with a landing zone, security baseline, and everything was infrastructure as code and automated. That's very key to work very fast with small team. So we had 3 environments even deploying our whole backend. So we're working with a pipeline, doing development from infrastructure up throughout the whole application layer, deploying into development, and then testing, and then production. And each of these environments were with a mobile application dedicated for each environment. So we could do very nice testing, and at least we could do that very fast. So we could do daily push out many updates, and really great. So coming to the costs, having that full environment replicated 3 times and also running in production with just not any scaling was in the order of 300 Swiss francs a month. So if you're thinking of 300 versus, and that's all pipeline, everything we have in the whole organization, everything we're using, including machine learning, where it is and what we did, all data. 300 versus 20,000, I mean, it's a very easy decision. Obviously, it's not like only dimension to think about, but it's a very interesting one because you can quickly get all the stuff immediately. It's there in the cloud, you can just get it. You pay much less, and you can focus the efforts in the team, which is very limited, on your unique thing that you come by.
Yes. Under assumption that team is already on the level that can efficiently use AWS services. Right? How long it took you to ramp up from I don't like Google
Zero
anymore, going to AWS? Yes. How long it took you from that revelation that you want to go to AWS to actually building efficiently something? In months, weeks? What are you talking about?
Yeah, so in our case it was a little bit different. Just to look, so I'm just looking at this one project now, which is purely startup, but also very similar for one we did for a large corporate in Switzerland, also building a greenfield startup-like thing. But if you're looking from kind of knowing that you want to do it on Amazon, and we had this first few discussions and looking at how to kind of maybe adjust a few things or just going through the thinking to actually doing it. I mean, there was some learning in terms of just kind of realizing that back then in early 19, like January, we spent, I think, 2 months trying out CDK, which is the new way to kind of do infrastructure as code, and realizing that this is not mature enough to really use reliably in production then. It's the way to go. Today it's the way to go. But back then it was not a choice that would bring happiness down the road for the next year or 1.5. So we had to back up a little bit and redo it in CloudFormation. And that took 1 month to do, kind of starting from scratch, knowing very well what we want to do and the pieces, but just kind of ironing it out, kind of like what does it mean exactly to build up that whole environment, to kind of get to a place where we have a working application that is really also across these environments in different.
So what would you say to today's startups that want to build something on AWS, let's say, or any other cloud, doesn't matter? How much lead time would you give them and say, take this 3 months to learn about certain services, or call us to help you?
Yeah, I mean, if I would have known who knows exactly and would be available to do it, you know, also I would have just worked with that. So obviously this is what we're, have here and can offer, obviously. But let's say that you have engineers and you have some knowledge. I mean, the knowledge that is important is not just AWS knowledge. It's nice to have, but what's more important is obviously that, you know, whoever is going to build it really knows conceptually the architectures and what it is to build an end-to-end system. Say now it's a mobile application with a backend that is non-trivial, and you know how to build APIs and think about this also down the road, how to evolve it, versioning and so on. But also very much the whole automation setup, infrastructure as code, pipelines for all the different pieces, no matter if you're building containers or lambdas and all that. So there's a lot of these things, and testing, I mean, another massive topic, because you need to do that. Operating, yes. But that's, you know, maybe less important, because if you can maximize the quality, operation problem is less of a problem. Yeah. So yeah, what's the time or the thinking? Obviously it depends what is it that your startup is doing exactly. But if it's a mobile application, non-trivial backend, starting from scratch, but you know the pieces, to get everything set up so that you have some of your APIs there and connected, and everybody in development and all the pipelines and all is set up, so you have a starting point. This is all doable in 1 month, and that was what we did in 1 month. But this doesn't mean, obviously, that you're on a level where you have now implemented all your features. It might be you have deployed a few lambdas or a container, and you have an API, and it's connected with your mobile application, and you have all the wiring and all the setup in Amazon. Now, that's for sure doable as a beginning. You can do it. I mean, this is something we would be able to do right now in maybe 2 weeks, or maybe even in 1 week, to get a starting point. But I think like looking back and also thinking how it would be now is more interesting, is to see like from having that or starting that journey and then coming to a place where you feel comfortable and it's very well known. That's, I would say, more like a 3 to 5 month thing. Okay. Let's say 3 months, I would think, where everybody is fully productive and fully understand this, and it's all to a level also where the product starts to be interesting, so that you can really see, like in our case, we had development, testing, and production. You're maybe live in production, and you also have new things going out, and starting to talk about more interesting things, which is also technically more challenging, like testing, A/B testing in production, and this is non-trivial.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so you said there were some kind of lessons learned with using the services that maybe were not mature enough at that time, so you had to roll back to some others. Were there any other challenges along the way, or maybe some lessons learned that you could advise future startups not to fall in the same hole?
Yeah, I think kind of both on both sides. Like the good things that I think are very interesting and that were interesting for me back then. So again, no matter if it's a startup, in the sense of startup, or if it's a greenfield corporate type of startup or initiative spin-off, in both cases today, you need to think about data. You need to think about security. Of course, you need to think about operations, but also scalability. These are interesting topics that you can get from cloud to quite a nice level. Like you can get, like there is this a shared responsibility model in terms of security and what Amazon is providing as an example, and then what you can build on top of this and what you're responsible to take care of when you're talking security. So, and the same is with operations. If you're using, or if you're in, let's say, the serverless camp, which we're going to talk about in another episode, but basically minimizing managing servers and patching, and it applies to anything like storage, to applications, to any type of front end, load balance, everything like this. So the more you can minimize, the less stuff you can do or need to do, and that's really beneficial as anybody starting out, that you can make a decision on, well, we don't need to do it, and we can get some of the best in the world that do only this to do it for us. What's the cost? What's the cost if we do it? So learning here for me is buy that in the beginning. And
focus on what you need to do as your startup, and what you know the best, and where you bring that value. Remove everything that isn't making no difference between your startup or any other startup out there. Right?
Yeah, because I think the flip side that we see everywhere, and what is basically the 90% of the internet today deployed, is that people didn't know about it or care about it, like security, and then we have massive opportunity for ransomware and all these attacks. So it's not like you start out as a startup or whatever, and you have so little time, so you need to trade off certain things. No, you don't need to. You need to care about data, compliance, regulation, security, and you need to make sure that your application runs and all these things. And this you can buy to a large extent from a cloud provider, which is very interesting, because you can't forget about it, because then you have just risks that you don't need to have. And so that's like one of the good things.
So were there any lessons learned, but maybe more on the a negative side? So what were the things you're not so happy about in this journey of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last 3 years being on AWS and the year before, 1.5 on Google Cloud, I think one of the things that's important to understand, also related to what I just said there as the positive thing, is that you can buy a lot of things and get a lot of things. Obviously, you're relying then on the cloud provider to, stay on the SLA level and that things work, obviously. And most of the time that's the case, but it simply means that you don't have access to do anything, you can't fix it. So if it's not working, it's not working, then you have to wait. And
praying works.
Yes, and the higher you are up building in the stack, so to say, the more of the things that can go wrong and not work, and things happen. So I think like lessons learned overall is that sometimes, especially in the earlier days, I mean, it goes quick. It's like year by year. So like 3 years ago, it's like back in the days, or like that. So especially also one of the reasons moving from Google to Amazon, or why I wanted, was I was not so happy with their service early on with App Engine, and I was trying to be in contact with them to understand what's not working, what's the roadmap, when will you add this, and there was just no response back then. So you felt very much alone, and this is not, you're not happy then if you want to build something.
The support, customer support from their side. Okay.
Yeah, or technical customer support. Yeah.
AWS there is, I would say, it's known for support, so the customer obsession, and I know a lot of guys from AWS support, the best guys ever. Kudos to you guys. really responsive and super knowledgeable. Really
that's what I wanted to point out, that contrasting that, and then AWS, it's like you have a problem, you just shoot an email to your support portal, and you can immediately talk to somebody, and like you say, they know a lot, and they even test and try out things, and you can send them some parts what you have tried out, and then they go and check things out in more detail. So you can quite quickly narrow down and see, is the problem on my side, or is there just maybe something missing in terms of a feature or something. So that's something which sometimes can be, but also even with Amazon can be sometimes that it's delaying you because you are waiting for somebody and you don't have access to do it. So this is really something
you don't have 100% under your control anymore. You have given parts to manage by somebody else.
Yes.
And that's what it comes to. So you rely and depend on the service level agreements you have with that vendor for operating the services on your behalf.
Yes. And contrasting that with them doing everything yourself, well, probably you don't have time to care about the security and the patching down the road all the time. At least you need to be very diligent and understand all these pieces, because you have to, otherwise you're just opening up more and more to attacks and risks and so on. So but then you have the full responsibility, and trade-offs definitely is something, and I'm trying to see if there's anything else that pops in my mind right now, with maybe trying to be a bit more critical here, as we're trying to be transparent.
No,
if it's that,
okay.
that good,
it's okay.
Is it that good?
It's good. It's good. Cool. Well, that's thanks for the info. That's a really good overview of why startups should be thinking about cloud. What are the rationales behind? What are the lessons learned, and what are the challenges along the way? Things evolve. Clouds are changing. The vendors are getting better and better in the services. The mentality and the reasons are still there. They're still valid. Why? So I'm hoping to see more startups building in cloud. And any final words for future unicorns?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk a lot more here, and I mean, maybe you want to comment in the comments if you would like us to take a look at a few interesting startups that maybe not any more startups, but companies that have had a lot of success in the cloud. Maybe also another topic could be to compare cloud to maybe blockchain and maybe future platforms to build on. It's another topic.
Yeah, sure. So for one of the episodes, then we can look at that.
Yeah. Other than that, I just want to say I think it's one of the things a startup needs to look at really, and what we try to give here is to understand that the thinking with the trade-offs and what you need to achieve as a startup in a very short time, looking at cloud makes it extremely interesting, because it gives a lot of things up front just ready to plug in and use that you need to have. And it's not about not doing the things like security or caring about your data or reinventing the wheels just because it's interesting for tech. So it's really extremely interesting to use cloud.
Yeah, it's as a startup you need to run fast in order to survive, and clouds give you this competitive advantage so that you can level a playing field a little bit with others, and you get tools that used to be in the past exclusive right of the large enterprises who could afford these kind of tools. Now the playing field is equal, and the one who is faster and delivers better product is the one who wins.
Exactly.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, then thanks for sharing your experience and your thoughts, and we'll see you again in the next episode.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you like it.
Yes, thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.
So if this is a relevant topic for your business, just contact us so that we can help you.
If you like what we are doing, please subscribe to our channel and like our videos.
And also, you can give us feedback and also suggestions for topics that you would like us to discuss and go into more detail.
In any case, stay tuned and see you soon.